Welcome everybody, my name is Patrick Fezowski and I am your host today in this CxO e-conference. Also a warm welcome on behalf of Dirk Vermand, who is the publisher and the founder of CxO magazine. Today, you'll discover the business strategies of 3 international successful entrepreneurs. If you have any questions during this e-conference, that will take about 1 hour and 15 minutes, just fill in the field on the left-hand side of your screen, and after 1 hour of this conference, Alan Cohen will join us from Hawaii to answer your questions. Let's have a look at the speakers at this e-conference. First of all, you will be hearing Joseph O'Connor from the UK. He's the co-founder of the ICC and president of Lambent. Then Alan Cohen from the US in Hawaii, and he's a worldwide keynote speaker and author on 24 books on personal growth. And Octavio Pitaluga from Brazil, who is the founder of Top Executives Net. So let's start. And today our guest is Joseph O'Connor. He's a co-founder of the ICC and president of Lambent. The ICC is an international coaching community, which is one of the largest professional membership organizations for coaches in the world. Joseph has worked as a trainer, consultant, and coach to many international companies. He's a creator of the Systemic Audit, a consulting process that maps the business system to understand how to change it in the best way. And Joseph is the author of 19 books published in 29 languages. There are over 500,000 copies sold of his books also. And he's one of the world authorities on NLP, and his greatest expertise is in helping top executives with vision, mission, and values. Welcome, Joseph, for this interview.
Thank you, Patrick. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's great having you here. And this interview will focus around sustainable growth strategies. So if you look back on your career in building up the ICC, a huge network worldwide, what's your top sustainable growth strategy you could suggest to the CEOs and directors listening?
My wife and partner Andrea Larges and myself started the ICC in 2001, and it was a vision. It was a vision of a coaching profession with coaches with exceptional skills, strong values, and an ethical code. And while coaching has grown considerably over the last 10 years or so, it's probably not quite made it to a profession yet. Now, when we thought of the ICC, this was our vision, and the international, it is international coaching, of course, getting the best from yourself and others, community, group of shared values. So if we're talking about sustainable growth, and the ICC has grown pretty much exponentially over the last 10 years. If you plot the membership, it's exponential. Now, of course, exponential growth is not sustainable. It's going to level out, and certainly that's to be desired. And so we're waiting on that. But in terms of growth, that exponential growth has been sustainable insofar as it's continued. The ICC is flourishing as never before. I think there's probably a number of things that I would put for that. The first, I guess, would be determination. Determination on the part of Andrea and I, certainly, and all the people that we worked with. And I think determination is an interesting word because it comes from D and terminate. In other words, determination means you don't set an end. In other words, you don't give up. If there's a block in the road, you find your way round it, over it, under it, through it, demolish it, or whatever. But you don't stop. So you're always looking ahead. I guess that would be the first thing. Second thing would be community. Community is about values, because community is a group of people who want to be together. It's not a group of people that's been co-opted and meant, try to be together or forced to be together or just happen to be together. It's a group of people who want to be together through shared values. And I think if you're going to get sustainable growth, not just growth for growth's sake or growth for money's sake, but growth that means something, growth that's beautiful, growth that has an aesthetic value as well, a human value, then it's got to be based on values. And then, of course, the third and possibly the most important thing is the people. The people are really, really important. And we've been very lucky in that the people who've been working with us on the ICC have been committed to this as well, have worked hard, and are wonderful people. And without those people, without that team, without that community, it's not going to happen.
If somebody listening to this interview has the intention of being determined, but doesn't feel it inside, that burning power to go through every wall or under every bridge, what can one do from today to find that determination in line with their vision and shared values?
It's a difficult question, because the first question would be, if they don't have that vision, then where's the determination and what's the point?
Well, let's suppose that they have the vision, they have the values, but don't feel that determination to just give up every single thing just to meet that end.
Well, of course, there's got to be balance. It's not. I don't want to portray myself as some kind of megalomaniac that's kind of sacrificed everything else to the ICC vision. I don't think that's sustainable, and I don't think that's balanced or ecological. I have a good family life. My daughter is 5. I've just dropped her off at school. I enjoy reading, going to the cinema, etc., etc. But one thing about determination is it's not like you're determined the whole time. I mean, okay, supposing you look at somebody, how do you know they're determined? It's not like it's branded on their forehead. It's not like they have a little placard with them saying, "I am a determined person." You don't know. You have no idea whether someone's determined or not until an obstacle comes along. Now, when an obstacle comes along, that's the time when you get to be determined. You don't get to be determined otherwise. So determination is something that is evoked by obstacles. Therefore, one mindset and one little exercise I do certainly is, when something comes along that blocks me, it's an obstacle, I go, that's interesting, here's an opportunity. How can this actually be a help? Seems, on the face of it, to be a problem, but how could it be a help? And then I look at it from all sorts of different ways and go ahead, because if things are important, and this is of course the most important thing of all, if you don't want to move forward, you'll stop at any obstacle. But it's the obstacle that evokes the determination. It's not the determination that exists somehow magically pre-existing that you use to batter down obstacles. I think it's that way round.
That's a very good question one can ask himself or herself. How can this be a help in changing that obstacle in an opportunity? You do a lot of coaching of leadership and vision and strategy for companies, and you work with authentic leadership. What is, Joseph, authentic leadership, and how does one become an authentic leader?
I'm just writing a book on that. How many hours have we got to explain?
Just 2 minutes.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, an authentic leader is someone with vision and the ability to inspire other people, and particularly to help other people think. Because while you could say that while organizations and work have changed dramatically in the last 50 years, we still seem to be struggling along to a large extent with some very old-fashioned moded ideas about what management and leadership is. And in a world where most people are knowledge workers, and in a world where most people are extremely intelligent and, quite likely to, as a CEO, to have people below you who could be better educated than you in terms of formal education, one of your main jobs is to get people to think, to actually help them to think, because by helping their creativity, you're going to actually be helping the organization, developing them and leading them in a good way. And I think that an authentic leader, I mean, again, authentic comes from the word author. Author means to create. So an author is someone who creates something. So an authentic leader is someone who creates their reality, who doesn't react to it. In that sense, they are a creator rather than a victim. And when things happen, whether they're obstacles or problems or difficulties or what could be looked on as disasters, they don't go around blaming, and they look on that as taking responsibility for their own reaction and moving on in a way that seems to work best. They look on every conflict as an opportunity, and their inspiration is not the kind of macho management that we see so much of these days, in terms of pushing people, in terms of force rather than power, in terms of poor communication and expectations rather than clear agreements, but an actual engagement with people, an engagement and vision and in growth that is sustainable, that's going to move the organization, the people, and themselves forward in a really good way. And this does not preclude money either, because authentic leaders, and this is something that I've certainly worked with in one financial company, working with coaching and authentic leadership, we got a return on investment as calculated by that financial institution of between 1,600% and 4,700%. In other words, for every dollar that they invested in the leadership coaching program, they got at least 16 back, and up to 47. Quite apart from the more difficult things to measure, the intangible things in terms of leadership skills, communication, people asking more questions, creativity, people being generally more happy at work. So there is no conflict between authentic leadership and turning value and money for the organization.
Okay, good. Well, I was wondering, when you were talking about that company that turned just $1 in $16, and that's for the whole turnover, could you share an example of a client of yours, how a leader become even more authentic and was able to change obstacles in opportunities, and what exactly did that do and change for the company and the people around it?
Well, do you want a company example or a client example?
You can choose. What's the most impressive?
Well, the most impressive was the company example, because this was a bank which was doing well already. Well, not that it wasn't doing well. And with the coaching, I did authentic leadership coaching of executives. I did some coaching training, some team coaching. So it was quite a long process altogether. It took about 1.5 years. But the result of that, quite apart from the top ROI figure, which was calculated in terms of the extra profit that they made as a result of the coaching, isolating it from other variables, of course. They were more creative. They had 3 more financial products than they had the previous year. The people asked more questions. The people were generally more creative, more able to work on their own. And this was sustainable. This is, this is what the evaluation at the end said as well. It wasn't just like this was a quick hit and then, as soon as I went away, that was the end of it, which would be awful. This was sustainable, and I think it's very important that coaching is sustainable. Coaching is not about going in, making a difference, and when you go, then it all collapses back again, because that doesn't impact the system. You have to think systemically. You have to impact the system so that what you do has an impact on the people and the system that's there, and therefore it's sustainable so that when you leave, it carries on. Now, I'm not officially an organizational development consultant. In other words, I don't go in primarily in order to give advice about organizational systems or management systems. I see myself more as a process consultant about how people think. And now, how people think creates systems. And what tends to happen is that people think, they create systems, and then they become prisoners of them, and then they start complaining about them, and then they find ways around them, and then you get two systems. One is the official system and the other is the unofficial system, which everybody else does, and neither of them work very well. So I think this is about changing other people's thinking. And one of the best feedbacks on that particular example was that the other departments in the bank, a little saying went round, which was, if you want something done, go to GTS. And GTS was the particular department in the bank that I worked with. So it was visible to all the other departments in the bank as well, in a very clear way, that led to this little saying going around. And in some ways, that was the best feedback of all, because it wasn't directly elicited.
Many are playing the money game, and many become prisoners of it. How does one achieve financial independence and escape from that prison of money and focusing on other things? What do you have to do? What is your vision on that? How could you inspire others to become financially independent?
The ICC is a not-for-profit organization. Mm-hmm. So, it's not like I sit on the head of a huge pile of money in the ICC. The ICC is run not-for-profit. Mm-hmm. But in terms of my own consulting and training and coaching, and about money, I think there's a number of things. First of all, if you go just for the money, money's okay. Money's great. I forget which Hollywood film star said, "I've had money, I've been without money. Money is better." So it's a kind of balanced attitude, first of all. Now, on top of that, if you go just for the money, probably you won't make it and you'll be unhappy. So that's not worth it. Do something you love. Do something you love that you have passion for, and money will come. That would be the first thing. Second thing is to work with involvement without attachment. In other words, involvement means to work with passion at what you're doing. Attachment means to be emotionally bound with the result. Let me give you an example. My daughter Amanda, who's 5, she's got very used to getting stars in her drama class. She always comes home, or she nearly always came home with gold stars, top performer or really good performer or something like that. And this week, she didn't get a star. And she was very upset, much more upset than she was happy when she did get a star. So, I had a little talk with her, and one of the things I said was, it's a great pity if the stars make you unhappy. And she said, but they don't. I said, well, yeah, they do, because look, it's about a star, and you're really unhappy. And she kind of thought a little bit, and then she stopped crying, and then she went off and did something else. And I think that's the thing about attachment to money as well. That can be applied to anything. The moment you get attached to it like that, it can cause you a lot of misery. And then when you lose it, as you will, because nothing lasts forever, then it's going to be a problem. Now, if you're always doing something that you love with passion, then that's not going to be a problem. And if that doing something you love with passion is able to, in some way, create a passive income stream, in other words, the money continues to come in even though you're sleeping. So, for example, writing books is one example of that. You write a book, it goes out, and royalties come in regardless. You don't have to do anything else to get royalties about that. I'm not saying that writing books is a wonderful strategy for getting passive income stream, because most authors make next to nothing from it. But it's an example. It's something about creating something that if you put out and if you create value for other people, and other people use it, either in terms of intellectual property, books, processes, whatever it might be, if that's valuable to people, then that will create income for you. So something of passion that you love, something of value to other people, involvement without attachment, and have a good life. That's it. That's the thoughts that occur to me as you from your question.
Thank you very much, Joseph. If people would like to know more about you or read your books, where can they go?
They can go to my website, which is www.roicoaching.co.uk.
Thank you very much, Joseph, for your time, and good luck.
Thank you.
And on the line from Hawaii, we have today Alan Cohen. Alan Cohen is a respected keynoter and a seminar leader in the fields of personal growth, inspiration, human relations, and achievement of work-life balance. He conducts life mastery trainings around the world, and he's the author of 22 popular inspirational books and CDs. He's also a contributing writer for the New York Times #1 best-selling series Chicken Soup for the Soul, and his books have been translated into more than 24 foreign languages. Welcome, Alan.
Oh, thank you, Patrick. It's an honor to be with you.
Thank you very much to you. Now, this interview is about sustainable growth strategies. And my first question to you is, what's your definition of sustainable growth?
I have a four-pronged approach to that, if I may share it. There are four elements. One is vision, the other is passion, integrity, and service. So my sense is that there are two levels of success. One is material, and one is spiritual or inner peace, and I believe that you cannot really separate the two. So I always encourage people to work from inside out and be sure that they're in integrity with themselves and their passion, and they extend that through service to the community. And in my experience with my business and the many business leaders I work with, this never fails. It's a perfect formula if you can practice it.
So if somebody is listening to this interview right now, after listening to your insight, what's the first strategy that person can use to grow his sustainable growth?
The first one would be to check in with your vision. Do you have a clear vision of what you'd like to be doing? Ralph Waldo Emerson said that if you see a row of crooked peas, it means that the seeds were planted crookedly. So when you line up the seeds, the plant grows in a straightforward manner. So I would spend a lot of time, if I were CEO, sitting down with myself, my staff, my trusted colleagues, and asking the question, what would make me feel successful as an individual if I were to be on my deathbed and look back on my life? What would I call success? And from that vision, you actually build a platform and you have a framework for moving ahead. And you can tell your vision when you hit a note of passion. In other words, when you feel excited about your vision. A vision should come from inside out. It should not be one that was taught to you or forced to you or coerced to you in any way. It should be something that absolutely excites you to do it. and you do it because you want to do it, and of course you want to make money, of course you want to be successful. But one interesting question to ask is, what would I be doing even if I were not receiving a lot of money for it? And the paradox, Patrick, is that once you follow that joy and excitement and passion, the money has a way of showing up. But if the passion and joy and vision is not there, money has a way of staying at a distance.
Okay, I understand it very well. But if somebody is manager of a company of 100 persons and he sits together with the management team constructing that vision full of passion, how to motivate all the 99 other persons in the company?
Well, that's a really easy question to answer because I see it a lot. If the management team has passion, then by the law of attraction, one of two things will happen. Either you will draw forth the passion from the people on your lower echelons, or they will leave, or you will send them away, and you will attract people who have passion. Really, all success is energetic more than it is logistical. And I see it time and time and time again that there's a trickle-down factor from the top. If the leader is bored, if the leader is bugged, if the leader's life is not working, that rots the company. There's a phrase in Hawaii that says that a fish rots from the head down. It's not a pleasant idea, but in other words, when the leader is not aligned with his or her joy, so then that kind of infiltrates the company. But when the leader and the management team are aligned with their vision and their passion and their integrity and their service, it's almost impossible for the company not to have that. I'm a great believer in the law of attraction, and the law of attraction says like attracts like. And so if you're living your vision, then you automatically inspire and attract other people who live theirs.
And how does that transform in business terms in money?
Well, passion is the greatest money magnet that I know. And in fact, in my own business, we have lulls and ups and downs. I've been doing what I'm doing for about 35 years. And of course, you have your high moments and your big successful moments, and you have your down times. And whenever our income starts to dry up or our attendance at our programs lowers, I step back with my wife or my partners and my staff, and I say, okay, what are we doing now that does not have life force in it? In other words, we may have started a program 7 or 10 years ago, but perhaps we're getting bored with it. Perhaps it's becoming a rote, mechanistic type of thing. Perhaps we'd rather not be doing it. Perhaps we're doing it just because it's been successful. And then we ask the question, if we were really honest, what will we let go of because it doesn't thrill us anymore? And if we're really honest, what will we start doing because it's our next step of passion and joy and delight? And I swear to you, Patrick, on everything I know, that every time I have done something new because I really want to do it and it seems like the right next step, suddenly people show up, money starts flowing in, and then if I keep doing something I'm bored or I don't believe in anymore, I just don't like anymore, the money disappears. So it's an amazing thing to watch the relationship between passion and money because it's as real to me as any other relationship I know.
All right, great. Now, if that company has, for example, a whole department of salespeople, which most companies have, they have to do the most regular tasks every single day again. Contact customers, call them up, hear no on the phone, and all over again with all the administration together. If you want to have that sustainable growth and a strategy attached to that where people have to do all the time again and again the same, how do you put that life, passion and vision in every day from day to day?
Another excellent question. Thank you very much. What I've discovered is that there's no such thing as a boring job. It's attitudes that are boring. And so I have seen people do very boring things and find very creative ways to do them. For example, one day some friends and I were exiting Chicago airport parking lot, and we had to go through a toll booth to pay the toll for the parking fee. And it was a cold winter's night, and everybody was bored and tired. And when we got to the toll booth, we found a handsome Italian man with gray hair, and as he was handing everybody their change from the toll, he was singing La Traviata opera. and all the women in the car swooned, and we had a good laugh, and we clapped and thanked him, and we went off into the night. Now, this was and later I saw a survey that asked people, what is the most boring job in the world that you can think of? And their answer was toll collector. So it's kind of an odd example, and I'm not suggesting that your salespeople necessarily sing opera, but I am suggesting that there are ways to take mundane situations and have fun with them, and if you can find that unique attitude that uplifts you, three things will happen. One is you will uplift your clients, two, you will enjoy it, and three, success will come.
In your book, Alan, in your book Relax into Wealth, you give some possibilities how to be relaxed on one side and at the same time be open for that income to flow in. But if somebody is running a company, has a lot on his to-do list and is running from one fire to the other one, and at the same time with the economic recession is low on the cash flow, how does that person keep that relaxed state into wealth flowing?
Well, it's really interesting, Patrick. I had a client who was the CEO of a hardware company, and he was working 6 days a week into long hours into the night, and he was stressed, and he had physical symptoms, and his profit margin was decreasing, and he said, what should I do? I said, well, let me suggest to you to take one more day off a week and do something that does nothing but fill you energetically. And he said, well, I can't do it, I'm too busy. I said, well, do this as an experiment. You came to me for coaching, perhaps you'll trust me. I suggest that you take one more day off a week, don't answer emails, don't do your cell phone, fish or play or swim or go to the movies or go to dinner, or do something that's just soul nourishing, if you will. And he agreed to do it, and I saw him a month later, and he looked great, and he said, that was the best advice I ever received. He said, because on that one day off, when I created space, I received more insights and more creative ideas and more refreshment, so that when I went back and I worked my other 5 days, I am now more productive in those 5 days than I was in 6, and my company is starting to turn around. And he said that there's a law of diminishing returns, which is that after a certain point, working harder will not yield you any more effective results. There's a point at which either one day off a week or small breaks during the day, whether it's taking a walk or sitting in the sun or listening to some music or just calling and talking to somebody you care about, those breaks are so energizing that they actually contribute to your success during the period that you're working. In fact, in the U.S. now, I don't know if they're doing this in Europe, but some large corporations are now purposely turning off all computers for 15 minutes out of every 2 hours or so, and they're forcing the people to rest and relax. And at first the employees went crazy because they were addicted to sitting in front of the computer. But they're finding overall that these brief periods of respite from hard work actually increase effectiveness over long run.
Great. Well, if somebody is convinced by, okay, I'll go for that, then how does one identify and become conscious of that point of diminishing results?
Oh, that's easy. You start to notice your mental and emotional and physical symptoms. For example, I write every day, and I notice that after about an hour and a half of writing, I start to get fuzzy, and my thoughts do not come so clearly. So I have become aware of that point when my mind starts to get fuzzy, and now I have trained myself to get up and sit outside or play with my dogs or listen to music or do something fun for 15 to 30 minutes, and then I return. Lots of people also have physical symptoms that show up. For example, you get a cough or your your back hurts, or you have indigestion, or you get a headache. And those signs are actually warning signs that you've just stepped over the edge. Now, unfortunately, most people try to override them, and they power through them, or they take a drug, or they work harder, or they do something to deny the symptom, but that symptom is actually a gift. It's a warning sign saying, okay, now is the time for you to relax. On the emotional level, people start to get irritable, they get testy, they pick fights, they start to feel depressed. And in my experience, Patrick, all those things are signals that it's time for you to renew yourself. And I guarantee you they work. I've been doing this for 35 years, and to the extent that I do this, it works, and sometimes I don't, and then I get sick. So heed the signals when they show up. They're actually gifts.
Alan, you've been speaking about coaching a person in a company, or sitting together with them to find their passion and their vision. How do you deal in a company with non-coachable persons who are not open to do this kind of things?
Well, my experience, Patrick, is that there's no such thing as a non-coachable person. I've been counseling people in many walks of life for many years, and if I believe that I can find a place in each person that is coachable. And if I am honesty, of course, is required. You have to, honesty and sensitivity are required. You have to be direct, but you also have to be compassionate. And, if somebody's completely non-coachable, maybe they don't belong in the company. I mean, that's an option too. But in my experience, Patrick, that's the exception. I think that if you sit down and you have a one-to-one and you look the person in the eye and you ask them, what's going on? Why is your work not working? Why is your life not working? Why are you resistant? How can I support you? How can we be on the same team? I've never found somebody that is not amenable to that. I think it's more a matter of approach and perspective and attitude than any particular technique.
Okay, and this perspective and attitude also connected with one's personal happiness. How is that connected to wealth?
Well, wealth, there are two elements to wealth. I teach a prosperity seminar, and I said there's basically two principles. One is that we live in an abundant universe, that the nature of life is complete and total abundance. My book, Relax into Wealth, explains this in detail. If you go on a beach and you look at the grains of sand, or you look at the ocean, or you look at the stars in the sky at night, or you look at the leaves in the forest, you will see that the universe has created an absolute, total, not just abundance, but extravagance. And so the next question is, well, why don't we all experience abundance? And the answer is quite simple, but it takes some practice. Each of us receives and experiences abundance to the amount that we allow it. Most people have a fallacy about creating abundance. Abundance is not something you manufacture. Abundance is something that you allow. And so usually when abundance is not happening, there's some form of fear or resistance or some belief system that says the money's not out there. For example, in America, during the 20th century, the two greatest architectural achievements were the Golden Gate Bridge and the Empire State Building. And both of them were created at the height of the Great Depression. They both rose in the early 1930s and were completed in the mid-1930s, when lots of people were standing in lines for bread. So the question is, how did those two magnificent architectural achievements come about at a time when money was in the least flow? And the answer is that the developers of both of those projects had a belief system that said, I can do this, and my personal economy does not depend on the economy at large. And that's a big stretch for most people, because most people believe that there is, quote, the economy, the U.S. economy, the world economy. But the truth is that even when things are bad, there are certain people who thrive gloriously. And even when things are great, there are certain people who flounder gloriously. So the question is, what is your belief system? If you believe the economy is in bad shape and my business has to suffer, well, guess what? That'll happen. But you can create what I call a bubble economy or a pocket economy in which you look for signs and strategies for increase even when other people are decreasing. Now, you have to be very firm in your belief, otherwise other people argue you down. But so, I know I'm giving a long answer, but the bottom line is that personal belief, expectation, and attitude supersede mass consciousness if your energy is strong enough, and there is always abundance if you're willing to allow it and stand by it and believe in it.
This abundance and this creating of that attraction, how do you make that, instead of chasing after clients, that what practical steps can one do within his company to have those clients attracted to the company?
Another great question. Thank you very much. I'm enjoying your questions. Well, the law of attraction says like attracts like, and there's another law that says that, and this may be challenging to some of our listeners, but that struggle is not required. In my mastery, I do a life mastery training, and one of the principles is let it be easy. Struggle is not required. Now, you have to read between the lines here. I'm not saying that work is not required. I'm not saying that effort is not required. I'm not saying that action is not required. But I'm saying that if you are fighting with somebody to become your client, or you have to wrestle with somebody to get a deal, I never do that. I just I just do not want to waste my time. One of our other maxims is work with the willing. Work with the willing. And I have a Japanese client who asked me, he's a dentist, and he said, I love tennis, and I met these business guys, and they love golf, and I think maybe I can get a business deal out of them if I play golf with them. He said, but there's two problems. He said, one is I hate golf, and I don't really like these guys. And I said, well, it sounds to me like you're fighting an uphill battle. I said, why not consider it this way? I said, imagine that you meet somebody in a social situation when you like him, and you both discover you like tennis. So you said, let's play tennis, and you play tennis. And in the locker room, you discover that maybe you have something in common business, and you decide, well, let's try this business venture together. I said, how much more enjoyable is that than playing a game you hate with people you don't like? Now, I know a lot of us have taught that you have to work with people you don't like, you have to struggle. But my experience, Patrick, is that the more you move with a positive flow of energy and you do not try to buck people you don't like or wrestle with people to get their sales, I have people show up at my door and in my classrooms that I work with and I enjoy, and I've experienced a great degree of success. I'm very grateful for it. And my motto has been not to fight for it. So if you can remove that struggle and fighting and wrestling mentality from your repertoire, I know it's a radical approach, but maybe in times like these we need a radical approach. So that's my suggestion.
Great, thank you very much, Alan. If people who are listening to this interview would like to know more about your insights for sustainable growth strategies or one of the dozens of books that you've written, where can they get some more information about you?
They can go to my website. It says alancohen.com, AlanCohen.com. All of my books are there, and I also do a life mastery training in Hawaii, and I also do a life coach training in the U.S. mainland. So if anybody feels drawn to come and work with me, I would be delighted to welcome you.
Thank you very much for your time, Alan.
And thank you, Patrick.
Octavio is the founder of Top Executives Net, and he's a business networks manager, certified international business coach, a public speaker, and a trainer. Octavio is the most connected South American professional in the main online social and business networks, and he has defined something like CNO in Wikipedia, which means the Chief Networking Officer. obviously, Octavio is a very important advocate and leading professional in networking. His academic background and professional experience relates to sciences, international businesses, marketing, and technology with relevant international business exposure in more than 25 countries. Welcome, Octavio. We're very proud to have you here.
Thank you so much, Patrick. It's my great pleasure being here today with you.
So you're a big fan of networking. So we're very curious, Octavio, how can networking improve sustainably and be a sustainable growth strategy for companies?
The most important thing is that you have a chief networking officer in your organization. Chief networking officer is a sustainable growth strategic business networks manager. What he does is he's responsible for turning all contacts, all that networking activities with main shareholders around the organization into economic value by acting strongly in both real world and in the digital arena at the same time. He is also a business networks coach. He is responsible for creating and managing a very nice business environment in which all stakeholders can trust, develop a win-win situation, have a transparency, and achieve mutual beneficial goals for everyone.
Okay, Octavio, so what I understand is that chief networking officer, he manages all the contacts on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and so on. What can the CEOs and directors listening now do from tomorrow, even themselves, to improve their presence in social networks?
Actually, as CxO works into the social networking arena via these tools that you mentioned, but he's also working very strongly in the real world through events, conferences, exhibitions, public speakings, and so on. So every action you do in the real world should be documented, should be recorded, should be uploaded into social networking to make that knowledge available to everyone at any time, anywhere around the world. So these people, the attendees, they could be able to access all that information readily and derive a very good, applicable, sustainable growth strategy right on time. So a chief networking officer, he not only works on the digital world, but he works on bridging both digital world into the real world every moment, every time. The good thing about this action is that once you post things on the web, they will be there forever. Unless, of course, you remove them, they will be there. And people, you comment, you refer to it, you redirect to somebody else. So it's much easier to spread the word around the world than if you just keep emailing one another every time.
All right, so if I'm a beginner in those social networks and I've made a profile, but how do I get out there to generate clients and attraction from clients for my company through these social networks?
Okay, one very important thing is that you need to have a very nice mailing to start with. You need to organize this mailing from the very beginning. And you need to take care of it every day. So if you have, let's say, your Outlook Express full of contacts, one of the basic ideas is to export the CSV file that you have in Outlook, and you can upload in a number of social networks. By doing that, you identify your friends who are already members of these social networks, and you can start by saying hello to them. Another important thing that you need to participate into social networking arena. It's not a matter of just having a profile there in a way that people will be knocking on your doors and saying, yes, I want to buy from you. No, you need to expose yourself. You need to share knowledge. You need to be available to people. You need to be friendly. You need to show that you are an innovator. You are practicing sustainable growth strategies all the time, that you are somebody global, that you are able to speak many different languages, that you are accessible. In other words, you need to be considered a nice guy, be well perceived. By doing that, you'll be attracting. You start attracting others to come after you, to come after your knowledge, to come after your service, to come after your connections. And then by doing that, you can position yourself centrally in the middle of the network and serve them. By doing that, people will highly perceive you as a reliable person and be willing to do more and more business with you.
If one has a Facebook profile, which most of us know that Facebook is more for building friends networks, how can you use your Facebook profile for business and attracting customers, being friendly, being seen as an innovator and share knowledge and so on, while actually Facebook is seen as something private and for friends? How can you make business out of it?
Oh, that's quite interesting. In Brazil, there was a research being published this week saying that 26% of business people, executives, they prefer Facebook rather than LinkedIn, where you can have only 10% of them using LinkedIn. Which means it doesn't matter if you are executive or if you are just social or independent professional. Some people do prefer some platforms rather than others. So that's why it's important to belong to the social networking arena and participate into a group of top social networks in order to relate, to deal with your connections in the environment they prefer. For example, I realized that one very important contact of mine is a top director in one bank, in one of the top 3 banks in Brazil. He does prefer to use Facebook rather than LinkedIn. He connects to me on Facebook immediately. He responds to me immediately via Facebook, but via LinkedIn, he doesn't operate that much. So the point is that you have to post regularly. You have to share what you're doing. You have to show that you are adding value to the communities. It's good to organize some events from time to time in order to make people migrate from the digital world into the real world and get to know one another and have a different type of conversation that you cannot do virtually. It's also important that you know how to integrate social networks among themselves. For example, Skype is a very useful tool as well. Normally, whenever I see somebody who is very interesting, I try to discover that Skype, this person is Skype ID, and I invited for a connection, for let's share, let's talk. And with Skype, you have also a screen sharing functionality where I can display what I have in my website. I can display a PowerPoint presentation or Excel file, and then I can even send this material to that person. So very quickly, without any kind of cost whatsoever, besides a broadband connection and an PC, I can move from not having any idea who that person was into a business conversation, depending, of course, if we connect well, if you see that we can add value to one another. That's a way, an example, how you can use social networking efficiently. Another example that I can bring to the table is that I have recently been hired to act as interim CNO, Chief Networking Officer, for a individual transportation system. Then I was hired to do this job in Brazil. So after posting on major groups on LinkedIn, inviting people to join me, those who have very strong connections with mayors, prefectures, and municipalities in Brazil, I achieved in just 48 hours a very good response from a group of 15 people, which is now covering 90 out of top 100 biggest cities in Brazil with a population of more than 250,000 inhabitants. And now I keep talking to them via Skype, and I provided via the web, via a internet site, full directions, how to operate, how to move very quickly. And we are now creating a seminar in Rio in the first week of July, by which we hope that the result of this 2-month work will turn into very good and concrete results for the company. So that's a way in which you use social networks, use the real world in order to very quickly assemble a team, convey a new idea, a business idea, try to identify the right prospects and bring them to the table for a very concrete and precise action.
So what you're saying is that you use social networks to identify potential customers in a very fast way. So imagine I'm a salesperson or account manager, and with my colleagues I'm sitting in a company, and I want to use social networks to get new clients. Where do I start? What I do? I have already my profile, but I don't know really how to get people to the table by using social networks, and we don't have a chief networking officer yet. So what do we do?
Very simple. As I mentioned to you, first thing you do, you upload your connections, existing connections, let's say from Outlook Express, into social networks. By doing that, you'll be identifying your friends and you'll be remembering, okay, this guy is a potential customer. This guy could really lead me to somebody. This guy is a potential investor. Because what is a chief networking officer does, or the chief networking officer methodology would help you with, that you don't only think of customers, because the most important thing is that you get the referrals. If everybody, all your friends are able to refer to your service, your work, your professionalism inside their existing networks, then you have your way out. So you can really quickly attract people to talk to you. Oh, I was told that you have such kind of skills or knowledge or expertise, and I need somebody like you in a project or for a job. Would you mind, would you be interested, blah, 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 and things can move on. As I said, the social networking arena is a very powerful communication channel, but you need to know what kind of a message you convey. You need to talk to people in a very intelligent way by attracting them to talk to you. Don't sell so much. Make them curious, make them interested in what you have to share, in what you have to show, and what kind of a knowledge and experience you have. By doing that, they will start talking among themselves, they'll be talking to you, they will move to the next stage. And of course, be responsive. By the time people talk to you, go back and say, yes, I'm here, how may I help you? Be kind, have always something available for free. That's why it's important to create a blog where you share your knowledge. You put, let's say, the tip of the iceberg there. You give some hints, but if people really want to know much more what you could do together, they need to contact you and have a more specific conversation.
Tell me, Octavio, by using this chief networking officer methodology or having a chief networking officer in the company, how much did your clients earn or improve their turnover in how much time?
Well, that's a very interesting question. First of all, because the chief networking officer is a concept that is being promoted by now. Some companies like Google, I was told that they have already assigned one professional to become a chief networking officer. We see that the companies that are much more into the innovation and much more entrepreneurial spirit, they tend to adopt such kind of concept much faster than others. Another thing is that companies that are much younger, they could adopt a chief networking officer because they don't have the very rigid and heavy hierarchy. Why, when you think of very strong corporations, very well established and very mature corporations, perhaps the way to promote this concept is through a business unit, where you need to have a visionary leader. What we do expect is that by the time you have everybody moving and activating their respective networks, all connections. Imagine that you have 1,000 members, 1,000 people in your company. By definition, you are sitting on a 250,000 member community network. If you have your 1,000 employees promoting products and services and ideas and job available in the company and everything inside such kind of just first level network, and if you go for the second level and for the third and the fourth one, so you can really cover a very nice population. So companies are sitting on gold mines, but they are not actively talking to their existing networks. Why? Because they don't have the understanding, the knowledge about the chief networking officer concept. They don't have the sustainable growth strategy in place. They don't have their employees trained and knowledgeable about the power of social networking methodologies. They don't have this in place right now. But we are seeing that some companies are thinking, hey, hello, there is something there. You need to be active. So for this reason, we do training. We are now doing some training in some big corporations who are thinking, yes, we need to do something. We need to react. Our competition is doing something there. We need to move as well. So the time is coming for the chief networking officer to be widely spread over the wild and to have very tangible results in a very short term.
Thank you, Octavio. When a company is sitting on a gold mine and they want your services, where can they find you?
Well, it's very simple. You just type my name on any Google or any Bing or any search engine of this world, and you find all my information. The first thing you find is all my presence on social networking. You find my LinkedIn profile, my Facebook profile. Then another thing that's very curious about me is that my name, Octavio Pitaluga, is unique. You only find me in the world. You have almost 7 billion people and just one Octavio Pitaluga worldwide. See? That's great. That's great. So if you have a very kind of unique name, promote it. The more you do so, then people will be easily finding you by email, via Skype, via Twitter, whatever. So they can address me in any kind of platform they want, and I'll be always responsive and welcome everybody for a very productive conversation.
Great. Thank you very much for your time, Octavio, and have fun with networking.
My pleasure. It's a great pleasure talking to you, participating. I hope that our friends, listeners, have got some ideas about sustainable growth strategies, and if they can apply this into their business successfully very soon. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, everybody, for still following us on this CxO e-conference about strategies of 3 international leaders. And we are very honored to have Alan Cohen on the line. Alan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me, Patrick?
Oh, yes, I hear you very well. Great. I'm really glad you'll be able to join us. And you're calling from Hawaii. So here we are in the evening in Brussels. And
sunny Maui.
And it's sunny exceptionally in Brussels, too. I think it's even warmer than in Hawaii right now.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you very much. If you are listening to this conference and you have any questions for Alan, do not hesitate to post them right now on the left side of your screen. You see a form there. There you can submit your question and we'll be able to answer them together with Alan right now. So we have about 10-15 minutes left for questions, so just be quickly because it's very exceptional we are able to host Alan here. Now, Alan, one of the questions we have here from somebody from Brussels is, what advice would you give to a person who has just realized he doesn't like his job, but he has to stay there because of serious commitments? I don't have any idea what that person meant with serious commitments, but I guess it's because of the money and because of the mortgage and other things.
Yes.
What did you do? What do you do
That's an
then?
excellent question. Actually, that's one of the most frequently asked questions I receive, so I'm happy to work with you. I would suggest that if you have to stay in a job for money reasons or commitment reasons, then it's very important to do something in your off hours, whether it's evenings or weekends or during vacations, to stimulate your spirit and your joy and your creativity. And I know many people who have a full-time job, and yet they look for time and find the time to feed their soul, if you will, as you might say. And actually, it doesn't take a full-time endeavor to follow your joy. Even if you invest in your happiness for half an hour, 2 hours in a day, or significantly on weekends, that can create a healthy balance between your work life and your creative life. And I also find that gradually over time, many people I know develop their creativity and their joy pursuit, if you will, so that at some point they receive enough income from their passionate endeavor that they can let go of their full-time endeavor or maybe work part-time and part-time. And I know many, many people who have turned their passion endeavor into a full-time income-producing job over time. So it takes some patience and dedication, but it's certainly possible. And in fact, if you don't do it, you kind of shrivel up and die. So you have to do it on some level.
Thank you, Alan. Here another comment from somebody who's anonymous, but he says, or she says, too many people spend their money they haven't earned to buy things they don't want to impress people that they don't like. And that's apparently a quote from Will Smith.
That's a very great quote. I appreciate that. Well, yeah. At some point, you have to make a decision about whether you're going to live to impress the outside world or to live to fulfill your inside world. And when I turned 40 years old, I kind of had a revelation. I realized that if I hadn't become happy by living to impress other people for my first 40 years, then I would probably not become any happier by living to impress other people for my next 40 years. So I made a commitment that from that point on, that I would do my best to follow my spirit, to follow my joy, to follow my creativity, regardless whether people liked me or approved of me. And I have to say, Patrick, that has worked a lot better for me than struggling and striving to look good. And when you start buying things to impress other people, then you go into debt, and then you have to work harder, and it's a vicious cycle. So at some point you have to break the cycle and ask yourself, what would it take to be fulfilled from the inside out, and then trust and allow that once you're fulfilled from the inside out, the outside has amazing ways of taking care of itself.
Here from Brussels, we have Johan, who asks a very short question, and that is, how good can it get? Question mark.
Well, I'll give you a short answer, Johan. It will get as good as you let it. And there's a little parable that I like. I'll be happy to tell you. It's a story of a man who was walking across a bridge, and he looked down in the river, near the river, and there was a man fishing, and he was catching big fish and he was catching little fish. And he would keep the little fish and he would throw the big fish back in the river. And so the onlooker was very curious, and he went down. He said, I've been watching you for a little while, and I notice you're keeping all the little fish but throwing the big fish away. Why is that? And the man said, well, I have a little frying pan here, and it's only 7 inches wide, so I only keep the fish that can fit in my frying pan. And it's kind of it's a parable in that the obvious answer is that you need to get a bigger frying pan. And in this particular parable, the analogy is that the frying pan represents our belief system. And if you believe that there's only a certain amount of money available, or friendship available, or love, or anything that you want, and you will actually create an amount equal to what you believe and expect versus what is actually available. So the key to lots of us, whether you're an entrepreneur or have personal relationships, is to get a bigger frying pan. You have to constantly stretch your belief system and ask yourself, what is available and what do I deserve, and am I worth it, and can I be supported? Can I create sustainable growth by following my passion? And in my experience, Patrick, and everyone who's listening, the answer is always yes.
I think I'm going to get something to measure my frying pan in just a moment. Let's listen to what you think of the following question of Tom from Belgium. And he asks, if there is a lot of competition on the market, what different attitudes you can represent instead of struggle? Is it possible to be successful and not struggling?
Absolutely. And the antidote to competition is self-confidence. And, where I live on Maui, it's a very interesting culture because it's an island. And most of the people here are either real estate agents or massage therapists. I'm kind of exaggerating, but it's kind of like that in some ways. And I talk to some realtors, and they say, real estate agents, they say, well, it's a terrible market, and I can't sustain myself, and I have to take another job. And I talk to massage people, and they say, oh, there's so many massage therapists there, I have to take another job. And yet, there are certain real estate agents that are thriving. In fact, I had dinner the other night with a woman who just sold a $27 million property. Now, the question is why, if there's such terrible competition and there are no customers, how did she end up doing that? And she actually thrives in many different domains in real estate. And I have 2 or 3 massage people that I see occasionally, and they're all booked. So the question is, if this is one island and one economy, then why are some people thriving and others are struggling? And a lot of it has to do with self-confidence, skill, belief, expectation, passion, integrity, and service. And those are the values I hold dear. And my experience, Patrick and everyone, is that if you are not focused on what the competition is doing to get to you, and more focused on how you can serve and expand and live your creative vision, then suddenly you have a competitive edge and you're succeeding where other people aren't.
Thank you, Alan, for these beautiful insights. We have one last question, and that's one from Bruno, and he asks, what values are important to create a conscious and ethical company? What are those most important values?
Well, actually, I think I just casually mentioned them in the last answer, but I'll repeat them, of course. One is authenticity, which means being true to your own values, gifts, and talents. Another is passion, in which you have to be excited about what you're doing. If you're bored or annoyed or depressed, it's not it. Another one is integrity, meaning being willing to be honest and fair and ethical and take good care of your people. And another one I would say is service, that if you put taking good care of people ahead of profit, it's amazing how the profit comes. And I need to just throw in that occasionally I'll have a lull in my business or it slips down somewhat, and I go back to the drawing board and I say, how can I take better care of people? How can I give people more value for what they're paying me? how can I go to sleep at night and believe that the world is a better place because of what I've done with my clients? And every time I do that and I readjust my business, there's increase in profits, there's increase in customers, and most of all, increase in personal satisfaction. And I believe that model will work for anybody if you're willing to apply it.
Thank you very much, Alan. We're very, very glad we had you on the line, being able to answer those questions and also giving us very valuable insights here on exactly the other side of the globe. So, Alan, have a beautiful day today here in Maui, in Hawaii, where you are now. And we'll have over 30 degrees tomorrow in Brussels too, so we're all happy also. And, well, have a good and great life. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Patrick. And I really want to acknowledge you for what you're doing. I'm looking at your logo, New Vision, Inspired to Create, and that's everything I believe in. So congratulations on your excellent work.
Thank you very much, Alan. And we're looking forward to hear you very soon. Bye-bye.
You well. Bye-bye.
To everybody who's still on the line on the conference, well, this is the end, and we're looking forward to see you and hear you on the next one. Thank you very much for joining us today. Bye-bye.